Hey, so today is another continuation in the CI automation based series that we've been doing, talking about different practices to get a CI up and running, like kind of, I guess, automating the general toil or chores around a project so that it's easy enough to keep doing this for every single project that you have, and it removes a lot of the friction for you to re-enter or come back to projects and keep hacking on them, right? So in particular, the last thing that we were talking about was dependabot. Now, I did want to take a moment to talk about dependencies because the way that we're going to go forward with this today, which is building a bot to do, how shall I put it, to do automatic approvals of dependabot PRs. Generally with dependencies, the more and more risk there is, like at a job or whatever, the less and less you want to do this sort of automation. And the more and more kind of stringent and particular you want to get about your dependencies. You probably want to start looking at how often are they used? Do people trust them? Is there a ring of trust around, do a lot of people use this package? Is it relatively good with security? Automatically merging stuff in has a risk now because there are things like the event stream issue, and if you want to talk about that or haven't heard about that, just hit me up on Twitter or wherever, and I can give you some links. But the sort of gist with that is there was a standard dependency that a lot of other packages were using in NPM, which is the Node Package Manager. And what happened was another maintainer, the maintainer of this package said, I don't want to do this anymore. Does anybody want to take this? And then somebody else kind of raised their hands and took it. And then they sort of crafted this attack along with another side package so that anybody bringing in that package that they used to trust now was tainted, right? The additional aspect of automatically merging NPRs is things like related to dependencies is things like there's the left pad issue, which was another NPM debacle. Basically what happened with the left pad issue was left pad was this really tiny library, a lot of other libraries depended upon it, and then one day the guy just up and decided, I'm just going to take this down, I'm going to delete it, and then all sorts of stuff broke. So a lot of people had to kind of rapidly figure out, well, what do we do now? The whole idea behind pinning stuff and having things around for a long period of time is about openness and transparency, and it's also about having a gatekeeper or somebody who is actually auditing these packages, having them the ability to say, I'm happy with this to go to the next version or the proposed version. So all that this is doing is basically, all that a dependabot from the get-go is doing is giving you the PRs themselves that say, hey, here's the dependency bump. Like this is a patch bump between smallvec from 6.10 to 6.12. And what's kind of nice is that if the project has release notes or if it has a change log, and if it has commits that are related to the change, you'll actually see these shown. And this is kind of neat because now this release notes changelog thing actually shows us, oh, well, in 06.11, the unstable alloc feature is no longer needed, right? This crate can now be built with the stood feature disabled on stable Rust 136 or later. Okay, so what we tried last time was, because these are just tiny projects of our own and we don't really want to be bothered by dependency updates and we don't really care because people aren't really going to be using this sort of stuff very often. In fact, I may possibly nuke this repository afterwards unless people really want it around for some reason. But the gist is that we tried to make a GitHub action to make an approval. We found this on the GitHub marketplace so that this dependabot bot would know to go to the next thing, right? However, that didn't seem to work. Now, what we could do is we could take this auto approve action and we could fork it and we could change it so that in this source main TS, you'll see it uses the GitHub token. And all that we need to do is just say, oh, okay, well, create review. I actually don't want that. I want create comment or whatever. And then I would use that action versus the other one. Let's move this out of the way. And, you know, it would be kind of cool to do that. It would be simple. But what I wanted to try, just for fun, was to develop this Probot app. And part of my rationale for that is we've already sort of looked at a fair amount of GitHub Actions. And this approach is pretty straightforward, like it's a one-line change, and I would actually generally tend to favor this approach because you could just copy-paste this from project to project. You could make a GitHub template, whatever, and then just have it come in. But this requires a little bit more of what we call GUI poking, right? So once we've built this thing and we have the code sitting around someplace and we've now registered this thing on GitHub, then what happens is when you go to, let's see here. There is a way to register this so that it just runs. But I actually don't know where it's going to be hosted. I don't think they host it. No. Okay, so maybe if they're not hosting the application, which, that makes sense. Might do this another day, because I really just want to show a way that generally people could do this. So let's fork this. And now this is our copy. So we're going to go down here and make a new tab and go to repos, and we're going to git clone this thing. So git. Okay. Now what we need to find is the actions docs with our client. Yeah, so this is the publication stuff. We may have to do this in order to make this available. Okay, so there might be a little bit of plumbing here. But generally, although we could publish this to simplify this, you would make maybe your, hold on, 1 second, let me just get to the right place. Right. This should be, here we go. This one. This, I believe, is what this is running on. And what I was saying before is that we could, if we truly wanted to, we could put in this logic that we're going to tweak inside of our own code base, right? And have our own workflows action. Right, that's the lint one. Sorry, source, and then this main TS, and then you say, oh, okay, well, it should be like a Docker file or something in here, maybe not. rebuild. Okay, so this is interesting. That's an exported version. So then we go to package.json and we'll look at what are the scripts. So NCC, what's NCC? I actually don't know. Oh, it's some Zeit thing. So let's go Zeit, NCC. Compile a Node.js project into a single file. Interesting. Okay. tsconfig JSON, yarn lock, git ignores dist. So what's happening here is, that's a linter. I believe they're doing automatic releases, or not, they're not doing automatic releases, they're just doing manual releases. And then when they push, there's this new release available, right? And we can probably go look at the tags associated with this. Curious. Yeah, okay, so I wonder if I could just say @master and get away with that. All right, so now this should be cloned. And the one thing we're going to want to do is back at our other project, right? No, this one. Instead of hmodel, we're going to want to say just dependaBot. And like what I was saying, I'm just going to do whatever's off master. And this is the conditional that's passed. So if the GitHub actor is dependabot bot or dependabot preview bot, which we can confirm. Yeah, I think that's right. Then, and yeah, we know this works because we've seen these approvals. It's just now instead of the approvals, we actually want it to just make a comment, okay? So what we're going to do is look up in this thing, assigning any newly created issues, commenting. Here we go. Oh. What would you look at that? We can actually just use this as an action and say when this thing happens, comment. Oh, that's so much easier. So, okay. That's so much better than forking our own stuff. So here we go. Let's, oops. Say and comment on a new issue, uses, actions, checkout master, name. And then this with, so the environment thing is what they want. Oopsie-daisy. There you go. With args comment hello world. So this is what we want. Place that guy. Format this a bit. And we're going to comment @dependabot merge. Now there's a problem here, which is that my general flow for PRs with dependabot or anything is to try to have merges as rebased up to master as possible. Okay? We could do something where like the if conditional might be able to check like, well, let's have a look, right? What are the actual issues we can get going on here? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna blow away this fork. next thing I'm going to do is, let's see here. Next thing I'm going to do is, don't need that. Just trying to put my thoughts in order. This is good. Right, should be solid for the most part. But all I need is, right, the conditional. So GitHub docs actions. Here we go. I want conditionals. Configuring, managing, workflow syntax. Right, so there's job, steps, runner, secrets, strategy. So we can have a strategy of fail fast, job index, job total, max parallel. There's a matrix. If you don't know what a build matrix is, it's basically, imagine an actual, n by m matrix. And what you're doing with the build matrix, let me just try to bring up some visuals. Fine, good enough for me. Right. You might have different versions of a compiler, for example, and you might have different, specific, maybe gem files of things, right? Dependencies. If you imagine this sort of spreadsheet-like or matrix-like thing where you're doing both of those things, kind of trying one after the other, that's why it's called a build matrix, right? So I don't think this is a great example. I'm just trying to find a good one. A competency matrix? I don't want competency matrices. I want a build matrix. I want something that visualizes what a build matrix is. Oh boy. Maybe there's something on this. Oh boy. Okay. Imagine each cell being its own build, and you set up this kind of combinations that you want tested or run together, right? So in this case, this is a 12 build matrix because it's going to try this combination, and this combination, right? Does that make sense? I don't know. And then it'll try this combination, and this combination. And then it'll try this combination, and this combination, and this combination. So it is the Cartesian product, I believe, an n-area Cartesian product where you have all of these combinations going on. So a really simple example is like, what if we had 192 and 193 and we had this gem file and this gem file? Then we'd have 192 with this gem file and this gem file. Then we'd have 193 with this gem file and this gem file, right? And what is that? That's a 2x2 matrix, and a 2x2 matrix has 4 cells, right? So that's the idea of a build matrix, and that's what this is, right? And that's pretty neat if you have different parameters of things that you want to try, right? And you want to build one. So we might make a build matrix to test out like a stable version and then a nightly version compiler. And then you might also have parameters for like highly optimized and then maybe with debugging symbols or something like that, right? And you just want to try to see if all of these things are building correctly. What we are looking for precisely is to see if there's any kind of conditionals, this GitHub stuff, and that gives us event, workflow, actor, the login of the user that initiated the workflow run, the SHA, the ref, the head ref, the base ref. So one thing that we could rig up this really complicated thing where we figure out if like the head ref matches maybe, the the head ref of master. That's a little icky, and sometimes when you start getting into really heavy conditionals and CI steps, it's my recommendation that those should start to become scripts, because then with scripts you can run things like Git itself and actually do the checks in there. So okay, we're just going to charge ahead with this. I'm going to do one quick Google verify step is verify branch is rebased. Maybe there's a really simple one. No, never mind. I'm not going to bother. So the downside to this action that we're about to push up is basically that we may not get rebased changes. Now, by default, what dependabot will try to do is when it merges one PR, it will try to rebase all the other ones, and then once those finish, then it will merge that. It's not always trustworthy, like given network failures and other complications, you may not necessarily see the same thing. It may merge into without rebasing them. That's just the way this goes, right? So, finally have some of my git config aliases back. Let's do this topic. Auto approve. Cool. Slash. All right. Go to this guy. And let's give that a go. Change auto approve action to use dependabot commands. There we go. So you see the difference here. We're using actions GitHub v100, dependabot approval. We still have the same conditional. Now we have this environment token instead of the with. And then this org is basically run a comment, dependabot merge. Okay, so this guy. And we honestly really won't know this will work until we just merge this. Right, now, yeah, we're just gonna go ahead. This guy, leave that open, that guy. Now that this is happening, we're going to say dependabot reopen. Dependabot should close this and then reopen it, I think. Or maybe it won't. I might have to tell dependabot to close it. Yeah, so close. Cool. Add dependabot open? Or is it reopen? Yeah, what we did last time. Oh, it's reopen. Yeah, so reopen. Now that should bring this back up. Obviously that approval is still there, but now you've got auto-approved dependabot requests going. You have two of these guys, which is funny. I don't know why there's a CI test here, although I guess maybe if we do this. No, that's weird. Yeah, okay. So you'll see here that it's pulling down and building this GitHub action. Now it's built. The action is successful. Oh, damn it. Okay, so this is a bit of a. I've got about 10 minutes left. So, yeah, that's a bummer. Okay. It's doing what we want, but it's not doing what we want. So GitHub Actions, push access. Now, normally I would not be Googling this. Not what I was expecting. Okay, so dependabot commands, GitHub actions. Dependabot script. A simple script that demonstrates how to use dependabot core. Dependabot for GitHub Actions. Interesting. No, it's not really giving us what we want. Now, actually, that's a really good question. The I'm gonna have to read a little bit for a second, but really, essentially the oh, shut me dead in the water. So, okay. That's not going to work. So, to go to dependabot. Let's go here. Now there are some settings. where we can say, that's what we have to do. Allow auto merging to be enabled on projects. Well, so dependabot has this auto merging thing, but I have not had much success actually getting that to work. So let's see if I can do this and in 5 minutes find a way to revert this. Right, so we're going to go back here. We're going to go to this number 9 one. Go, whoops, not restore branch, branch. Pull request. Just going to merge this guy. That's going to bring this back into play. Merge pull request confirm. Now that we've made that the default, we're going to go back here, bump small vec. Close this guy. Now it's funny, I wonder why it's keeping these other builds around. That's a bit interesting. And this is queued, so we're going to just have to wait. Okay, so all the things have gone green. There's an approval now. Will dependabot do this? This might not work. Approve. So there you have it. We basically can't do anything because dependabot won't let us have any other user except somebody who has push access to do this. Now we could, I wonder, right, if you could be very, very cheeky. Yeah, no, that's a terrible idea, by the way. I just really wanted to know if I could get it to work. But there you have it, right? Basically what we tried to do was we tried to have automated merges, and that didn't go very well. The problem with trying to do automated merges was that the users that were available, that were doing the approvals, that were doing the immediate things, they were not collaborators on the project who had push access to the project. So dependabot was ignoring their actions. So I'm going to remove this approval thing. And in fact, the other thing I'm going to do is, we'll go a little bit over time, but I'm going to just remove that action so that we have one less thing to make the CI a little more slim. There we go. And yeah, we might. Yeah, so this is the thing, right? This kind of goes back. I'll go a little bit over to talk about this quickly, not too long. But when you have dependencies, there is risk. You basically are saying, I don't want to write this extra code myself. I want to trust somebody else's code, and you're putting trust into that. When you merge code in, you are saying the barrier is me. I've inspected the code, I've inspected the changes, I've said everything is okay. What we've tried to do today and yesterday was make that a bit more streamlined, and this was explicitly with the purpose of personal projects or where the risk is really low or there's not a lot of usage on the project yet or whatever. The moment that a project becomes popular enough for other people to use it and there's a higher risk involved, if it's a commercial project, etc., you do not want to be doing this sort of auto-approval based workflow. And in fact, dependabot's pretty easy because when you get an email from dependabot, you can actually just email back and say @dependabot merge, right? And that's like the simplest thing, right? You just tell that to dependabot and dependabot goes, okay, cool. Realistically, there are different ways to maybe automate this as like scripts or whatever, or with like a bot user that does have push access or something. So we could try the probot approach another day, and that might be kind of fun to just give a go. Or you could try the dependabot one with the auto merging. I'm personally going to maybe leave that off for a bit because I don't want it to accidentally start merging on parts of my projects that I don't want that to happen to. And here we go, last little thing. Let's just check the changes. We remove this guy, one last build step, and that's it. And so next time what we're going to discuss is caching, which can get really complicated, but we're going to actually focus on making it really, really just dead simple and dumb. And that's it. I'll talk to you guys later.